Well, here we are at the end of another week. I'm desperately trying to keep my head above water as usual. So we got one more mode to talk about, one more weird addition to this first paper assignment, which again, I still need to write the assignment guidelines for. I'll post under the lessons tab. So you guys have some, like a nice checklist to go down as you're trying to put this paper together. But again, reminder, I'm not going to come at this first assignment with a lot of scrutiny. I'd like to kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of get an idea of where you guys are. So again, I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Don't panic if this one gets a little weird. Weird is good, right? So today we're talking about the last mode. We're talking about argument. Now, argument is a very, very fun discussion. I would say of all the modes, argument is the most generally, well, do I want to say useful? And maybe the most predominant. People have a tendency to write with a primarily argumentative voice. And what does argument mean? A lot of people, when they hear argument, they think that there needs to be some type of disagreement or conflict. That's not necessarily true. You can make an argument without someone directly opposing you. It's not a fight, right? An argument basically is just a stance on some type of issue or discussion that you're having. It can be as simple as you should order butter pecan when you go to Baskin Robbins, or something along the lines of we should ban AR-15s. Now, I'm not saying I believe either of those things. I actually very much dislike butter pecan. But the point I'm trying to make here is it's more an opinion. And the opinion is the thing that drives the writing and argumentation. I've had so many students over the years ask me, is it okay if I write my opinion in this? I'm like, what else are you going to write? Like, everything has to come from your own personal perspective. Now, there are ways of making an argument better than just saying, I believe this. For the most part, if you want to write a nice, sharp, effective argument, you don't want to treat it as your opinion. You want to just state it as if it is truth. You want to state it, defend it, and be strong with it. So, yeah, you must order that butter pecan, dude. It's amazing, right? Or the butter pecan is the best flavor at Baskin Robbins. Now, you'll notice I'm not really giving a lot of credence to the other flavors. I'm not like, well, yeah, the caramel turtles are good, but you should. That kind of weakens the argument a bit. I see that a lot when we start playing around with arguments. Students really want to give deference to the other side, and they'll try to go between two stances and mitigate between the two of them, which I understand the instinct for that, especially since, as far as my politics go, in a lot of issues, I try is the operative term. I try to be centrist, right? I try to understand both sides of a position. But when I'm writing and when I'm trying to make a point, I don't throw ammunition to the other side. One, why would you want to do that? And two, it makes your job a lot harder to kind of saddle two different perspectives. It's easier to just be one-minded and go in and attack from one perspective. Now, as you get a little better and a little bit more comfortable in your writing, you can start making those deferences to the other side, and you can balance a little bit. But that requires a really complicated balancing act that's really hard for people who are not really confident and really skilled in the writing. It's better to start with a little bit more of a narrow focus. Broad as opposed to narrow points are always easier because you don't have to take on so much responsibility for yourself. You can get that laser focus in on the details. Now, arguments themselves are split into three different types of appeals. I'm playing with a piece of Dungeons & Dragons dice. Isn't that cool? I want to buy more. I could play Dungeons & Dragons with some buddies of mine. Anyway, arguments are always going to split into three different types of appeals. You can't get around this. The first is logic. And there's some Greek words I like to throw in there on this too, but we don't have to do the Greek words. Logic is the most common argumentative appeal when you're trying to persuade someone of something. Logic, and it's funny because, again, one of the tricks I like to play when I'm teaching this class face-to-face is to play around with the definition of this stuff. Stop and think for a second. Like, close your eyes and think about what the word logic means. Like, pause the video and think about it. It's actually kind of a little bit of a head exploder when you stop and think. We use the word logic pretty casually. But when you stop and really think about what logic means, it can kind of sort of just be like a little bit outside of us. Logic, if I had to define it, I would define logic as an appeal to common reason. Things that make sense to us when we are presented with evidence. Evidence, statistics, and reason are the meat and potatoes of logic, right? And now the funny thing is regardless of what I believe from a political situation, I can make logical arguments for both sides. And I know this is kind of unfair because I said don't do this, but let me try this on for size for a minute. What is a logical argument against gun control, right? Against weapons bans of any type? I'm going to go both sides. An argument for gun rights also, because gun control is a little bit polarizing. So I'm making a logical argument for gun rights. The world has a tendency to be a little bit of a dangerous place. Now, that's kind of bringing in a little emotion, but just, bear with me for a minute. It makes sense when the world has a tendency to be, a little dangerous, a little chaotic, that you might want to protect yourself or have that protection nearby, right? Or sometimes, here's another really big logical argument. Some people like to own guns, not even for protection purposes. Some people collect them. Some people enjoy the feeling of firing a gun at a firing range or taking care of guns or collecting them as showpieces. These are logical arguments to say, well, there are reasons behind this. And there are, it's not exactly something that I'm coming at with a lot of emotion. Now, to flip this over on its head for an argument for gun control, I've got all sorts of facts and data that I could talk about certain guns and their use in mass shootings. I could throw out a statistic, the fact that if you own a gun, you are much more statistically likely to use that gun on yourself than you are defending yourself with it. That's the statistics on that are actually pretty scary if you ever look it up. These are logical arguments, right? And they're not meant to like scare you. They're meant to make you think, that's an interesting point, right? So logic, I think, is the most common, and I really like logical thinking and argumentation. So let's move away from logic for a minute, because there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with logic, but I want to try to get through this video a little quicker rather than slower. Let's talk about authority. Arguments from authority are fascinating too. And arguments from authority are very specific. Authority is anything that has like some type of power or weight within a situation to say that we should listen to that. Anytime you watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or whatever, and something's going on in the news, they have a tendency to bring on a guy with a PhD in sociology or psychology, to give their perspective on what's going on. The PhDs, the Poindexters come on, and these news organizations present these people in a way that we're kind of supposed to listen to them, right? They're experts. Their opinion is supposed to matter to us very deeply. That is an argument from authority. It's like, hey, Dr. Duber here thinks that we should not have gun control. And then he comes on with like these big, thick glasses of poofy white hair. And he's like, according to my research, I don't know why I'm making bigger glasses for myself. I already wear big, thick glasses. But in any case, you guys have seen this. This is nothing new. But argument from authority goes in two other really strange directions too. Any argument from a legal perspective, from the law, citing the law as the authority, is basically counts here as well. Constitutional arguments, when we argue about the legality of an action. A pure argument to authority is a little problematic for a bunch of reasons. I had a student one time writing a marijuana paper, I think it was the only anti-marijuana paper I've ever read in my entire career, because those things are rare. But it was an anti-marijuana paper, and she made the point that, well, marijuana is illegal. Therefore, it should stay illegal because the people who made it illegal were the authority, and they know what they're talking about. I was like, that is a pure appeal to authority in the most extreme sense of the word. Now, I don't want to get too much. Well, I guess we'll just sort of jump into it. I've already kind of broken the ground. An argument of pure authority is a little bit fallacious. It's a little problematic. Because is the law always correct? Is the law something that we should always listen to and assume is infallible? Most people would say no, right? There's been a lot of things that were technically legal, but were not right. Case in point, slavery was legal in the United States for a long time. And if you look at arguments from a pure authority standpoint, then that kind of justifies slavery. And there's not very many people out there justifying slavery these days, right? So there were also many, many laws on the books during the Jim Crow era that most people would look at today and say, no, that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that. So trusting an authority figure 100% on its face is problematic. You can make arguments to authority, but you need to be aware of what's going on there. Another one, and this is one that I've always found really fascinating, and this is some very, very uneven and kind of scary ground. Any argument to religious or moral law reasoning is automatically an argument to authority. If you're going to say, we should not do this because it is wrong, that's a pure authority argument. And let's stop and think about this for a minute. If you say that we should not do something or we should do something because the Bible or the Torah or the Pentateuch or the Buddhists, the British, it's like a whole religion. I follow Britishism, or the Buddhist texts, or any of those holy books. If you argue that something is amoral because it goes against a holy book, that is a pure authority argument. What's wrong with that? There's nothing intrinsically wrong with it, but the problem is, if you're making an argument from pure biblical reasoning, there are a lot of people out there who do not believe in the Bible. There are a lot of people who have a different holy book, a different worldview, a different religious structure, and a lot of people whose morality might not completely match up with yours either. The problem with this is not that the reasoning or the argumentation is wrong. The problem is you're not going to convince those people, right? It's not a very convincing argument for people who would not already agree with you anyway. If you're using the Bible to make a comment about some type of societal issue, everyone who adopts that worldview that says that text is truth is immediately going to agree with you anyway. You've not really done anything helpful in a larger context, right? So now, arguments from authority. That's an argument from authority. It's not that you can't make them, but you need to be aware of what the weakness is. Now, let's do my personal favorite. Let's do an argument from emotion. For me, arguments from emotion are the singular least trustworthy things, because arguing from emotion almost always tends to be extremely manipulative. It tugs at your heartstrings. It tries to make you afraid or any other thing. Arguments from emotion directly undermine arguments from logic, right? Emotion and logic are two very different things. They oppose each other. Now, some classic examples of argument from emotion would have to be the drug PSA ads, the truth ads, any of those ads that show you that the world is going to explode or you're going to melt from the inside out because of cigarettes or drugs. Now, again, it's not that I disagree with the message. Those ads are pretty right. I mean, I think we all would agree that cigarettes are pretty bad for you, right? Just in the same way that soda is bad for you, sugar is bad for you. Cigarettes are pretty bad for you, right? But here's the thing. The way that these ads present their information is typically extremely manipulative, where you've got someone like hanging out on the corner of the street, like, yeah, I'm gonna smoke a cigarette, and then they explode, right? Or it's like, 3 months later, I'm dead on the ground. I've known people who smoke. I'm not afraid to admit that I've smoked a few cigars in my life. I didn't blow up. I didn't melt from the inside out. It's something that's unhealthy. It doesn't like kill you right then and there, right? And that's kind of the reality that these ads want to put in front of you. They're trying to scare you. And often when you try to scare people, it comes off as very artificial. It's manipulative, and it can put people off when you argue from emotion. Another one of my personal favorites. Think about the argument from this. Have you guys ever seen those commercials? You're sitting in your chair at night watching TV. It's been a long day at work, and the screen goes black, and all of a sudden that Sarah McLachlan song's like, "You're in the arms of the angel, far away." Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's those ads. I'm not going to say what organization they're from, but they're the ads where they need people to adopt animals. And there's like a puppy, and it's like, and then there's a cat that's like, right? Now, our first instinct when those commercials come on, not everyone, but most people that I know, when those commercials come on, their first instinct is to change the channel. Does that mean that they don't want to help the animals? No, that's not really what's happening there. What they're responding to is kind of the manipulative nature of those commercials. Those commercials are working extremely hard to make you feel guilty, right? It's like, look at the cute little puppies. They need your help, right? Now, there's something else going on with those commercials that's very unsettling when you see it. And when you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Do puppies sit around doing this? No, they don't. If you ever owned a puppy, they don't sit around looking up at you slowly with those big eyes. Puppies generally act something like this. Right? They're typically energetic little things. So why on earth is that puppy in the commercial doing the slow-mo, like cutesy eye thing? It's slowed down. They went and put a slow motion effect over the puppy. And they do that. And again, don't misunderstand me here. Animals feel emotions, but they don't really feel emotions the way that we do, right? And as someone who has had and taken care of and seen rescue dogs who've been neglected and dogs who have been in situations that weren't good for them typically don't sit around looking all cutesy like a Hello Kitty commercial. They tend to be a little bit aggressive. And sometimes they are absolutely terrified of everything. And more often than not, they're running around peeing all over everything. And that's how they express an emotion that they don't really know how to express otherwise. They don't sit around looking cute. They just don't, right? So what you're essentially getting from these organizations is a heartstrings pull of something that is very not real. This is not how those dogs act. Now, again, I'm not downplaying their emotions, but they express it differently. We instinctively feel a little angry when we can sense that we're being manipulated. When it's like, well, and what do those people want? And again, this is not a slight against them. They don't want necessarily for you to go volunteer. They want your money. They want your donations. And again, those donations, I'm sure, are going to very good things, right? They're going to programs and they're going to supplies. So the money that you would donate to those organizations is going to a good thing. But the problem is they're asking for it in a way that it's like, it feels like you've got like a wire wrapped around your heart and they're pulling it tight, like, right? And we instinctively are just like, oh, for God's sake, just change the channel. I don't want to feel that way right now. So in any case, those are emotional arguments. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to manipulate you into an action. These are the three argumentative appeals that you will typically make when you are trying to make an argument of some type. Now, the final forum question for this week, and you can go back and just fuse all of these forum questions into a general one-page paper, even if it's that. I want you to write about your political topic again. And I want you to try to write a paragraph that's argumentative and uses one of these appeals. You could theoretically use all three if you wanted. You could use two. I think it would be easy to focus on one. But I want you to try on some argumentative language, add it to your paper, and then you'll be ready to submit it on, let's say, Tuesday. That's typically when I post. So I kind of like organizing these classes so that stuff is happening on Tuesday and Thursday for the online classes. So write a paragraph, make it argumentative, use one of these appeals. Again, don't feel that this has to be good. We're not at the point where we're making it good yet. We're just trying to get the writing out. Okay. So in any case, I have a lot more stuff I could do with argumentation because, believe it or not, human logic is extremely flawed in some really, really fun ways. There's a lot of really strange holes that you can use to manipulate people within logic, which is really, really it's fun, but it's also really disturbing when you see those. Now, I might talk about those later as we get to the bigger, longer pieces of writing, because not only are those logical fallacies something you should avoid, they are things you can sometimes exploit as well. So I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to end it here. I'm going to write up the assignment guidelines for you, giving you exactly what I want for the assignment that's due next Tuesday. It will be very easy. Again, don't freak out about the quality so much of it. I just want to see where you are with your writing and all that good stuff. In any case, I think that's it for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I need a burger. You ever just need a burger? No, I tell you what I need. I need bacon. I need bacon like nobody's business. I could eat my body weight in bacon. It would be a good death. It would be a death that I could be proud of. And anyway, you guys have a great day. Thanks a bunch for listening to me ramble like an idiot.